Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session, which is all about analyzing your STAR results. I hope everybody has had a good week and is ready for a lively session. I'm hoping that it won't take us too long to get through everything today, and hopefully you'll be able to finish a little bit early. So we are continuing with our collaboration with Teach First. I'm hoping everybody has had a chance to do their STAR testing. So what I wanted to start with was just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions during the session today, you are welcome to go and share anything you need to know in chat, and my colleague Jessime will be happy to go and answer any of your questions. She may also raise some of the questions to me if it's something that you have that is urgent that you need to know. The other thing you can do is you can go and raise a hand if you have a question, and I can come and unmute you if you would like to go and share your ideas verbally instead of over chat. You can use the crosses to agree or disagree, so could you go and you can use the emoticons to tell us if you need to step away or how you're feeling. So we're just going to try that right now. Can you tell me how your importing of data went using your emoticons? Is it okay? Was it a bit of a frustration? Go ahead and tell us how that has gone using your emoticons now. Oh, I can see that Ian's went just fine. Maybe he was perhaps finding it a little challenging. Wasn't quite sure whether or not certain things had gone right or wrong. Jem's looks like his went okay. Fantastic. Could everybody just tell me also, just give me a tick if you have your STAR results with you today. If you were able to print off that screening report, just give me a tick so I know that you have that and you're ready to go. Okay, so far I can see nearly everybody has it. Hannah, if you have yours, Matthew, if you have yours, if you just give me a tick to let me know, that would be fantastic. All right, so moving right along, can you tell me how your STAR testing went? Just go and share those things in chat. Anything at all that you could say about how it's gone, I would appreciate. Did you have any problems with getting the kids logged on? Was there any trouble with the fact that perhaps their names were anonymized? We wanted to get your feedback so we can think about ways of making it a little easier for you moving forward. I know we have had some feedback from a few schools saying that they were a little worried about the kids remembering the numbers that they are from this test to the next test. It may be worth going and just jotting down the names next to the kids now so that you have a record of that for in December when you have to start test them next. Okay. I can see Navy said that it was fine. She's done it a couple weeks ago on AR. A bit confusing first, it seems okay. Jem said it took much longer than 20 minutes for my kids to finish. That's absolutely fine if it takes them longer than 20 minutes. Our concern is when it takes them less than 20 minutes, especially if you have some weaker kids. It's going to be an issue. They might need a little bit longer to be able to get through it. Hannah said 2 of her children have the same initial, the first name and the last name, so couldn't log them on. Okay. Well, hopefully we can go through and we can give you some ideas to make that a little simpler. Any of the technical problems that you've had, we will be able to sort out with you, so we won't have those hopefully moving forward, but we will go and give you some of those things, and Jess will give you some ideas. Okay, so there are 4 things I'm going to cover today. I'm going to start with analyzing your results. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can spot anomalies in those results. And we'll do a little bit about catering for your SEN, EIL, and free school meal students. And then I'm going to give you your next steps. And I want to start with analyzing results. In the system, whether you have STAR Reading or STAR Math, it doesn't matter. You have the same reports available to you under your frequently used reports. And you can see that there are quite a lot of different things you can go and you can run to find out how the kids have done. There are also some additional reports, but you may notice there is one report that is different. Can anybody spot the one that's different for STAR Reading and STAR Math? What is that one report? Go ahead and stick it in chat if you have spotted it. The one that is different in your additional reports available. It is up there on the screen. Has anybody caught it? No, that's absolutely fine. There is with the with Star Maths, you have your accelerated maths library, and with Star Reading, you have your reading range report. Both of these reports are actually not relevant unless you have accelerated reader or accelerated maths. So you actually don't need to worry about the fact that there is one report different. Everything else is exactly the same. What I would like to know is, tell me in chat, which of these reports do you think would be useful right now? You can read the descriptions there. What do you think might be useful at this point, and what do you think you may not touch till further down the line? So take a look at those reports. Tell us your ideas in chat. Please do share your ideas. It's much more exciting for us if you interact with this session, because I could just talk at you for 40 minutes, but it is a lot more fun if you actually respond. Anybody see anything that they think would be useful right now? Okay, so maybe said the reading range report is what we really use mostly. Growth and annual progress are good further ahead. So yes, if you have accelerated reader at your school as well, maybe I absolutely agree you would want to use the reading range report to start off with. We're actually going to start today with a couple of other reports. We're going to look specifically at the screening report at this point. And I am going to take you through the student progress monitoring report. It is one that comes in further down the line, but if you don't set up certain things now, you can't use it in the same sorts of ways that would be as useful. The annual progress report, again, great at the end of the year, and the growth report, great when you've done 2 STAR tests, but not so useful at the moment. So the ones we're really going to focus on today are the diagnostic report, the screening report, and we are going to touch a little bit on the student progress monitoring. We did already look at the summary report at the Teach First Impact Conference, so if you don't remember that, you may want to go back and review it. The recording is up online. If you have already looked at that, that's fantastic. Or if you need a little reminder, you can feel free to go and ask Jess in chat if you want any sort of reminding about that. There are 2 other reports that are listed here, which is the test activity and test record. You might find the test activity report useful to go and catch any students who may not have done their STAR test yet, because it will give you the names of the kids who need to be mopped up. Okay? So I wanted to start with the STAR screening report. And this report, whether you have STAR Reading or STAR Maths, is exactly the same in terms of what you see on this front page, which is we have a lot of different colors. And what I wanted to know is, based off of just taking a quick look at this report straight away, and you can look at your own report, which students are you most worried about? Are they the red ones, the yellow ones, the green ones, the blue ones? Are you surprised by any of them? And so really, let's start with, who are you most worried about? Go ahead and put it into chat. Do we have anybody who wants to answer? The red, thank you, Ian. Yeah, absolutely. We obviously, the red ones are the ones that most people would immediately be drawn to. And what's actually really interesting about this report is that while the red students are the ones who classically need the intervention the most, they may not be the ones who are most interesting to us when we're looking at this report. And the reason for that is as follows. There is something on here called a normed reference standardized score. And a standardized score is just like any other standardized score. It's been normed referenced against a lot of children. In fact, there's been an enormous number, and I'm sure Jess would be happy to go and put that number into chat, because I know that she was very kindly sharing that with me the other day. We normed against a huge number of students, and so what we can tell you is that this number is incredibly accurate representation when we compare the students who were born in the same year and the same month nationally with their academic peers. So you can see 860,000 tests from around the UK. It's a really big number. And that standardized score, what we know is that children who are working at around 100 are working at around what is average. If they are getting above 115, they tend to be flagged for gifted and talented registers. And if they are being flagged for a SEN register, they tend to have a normed reference standardized score of 85 or below. So you'll see right here, those who are flagged for intervention and urgent intervention, they're the ones who are getting that 85 or below. And you can see that, and I'm actually going to grab my arrow here and just show you. You can see that number right here. Okay, the 85 or below for the normed reference. Now, those kids who are flagged for the SEN register, they're likely to already have interventions happening at the school. If they are having trouble with their reading and they're flagged for intervention or urgent intervention for reading, they might have a TA, they might be being withdrawn for extra literacy support, they might be on some sort of program, catch-up program like Lexia or Toe by Toe, they might be doing a whole range of things. Now, if it is the students who are really weak for math, you may have a whole slew of math interventions that are in place. And similarly, you have the kids who are working around the average expectation, who again, we're probably not as worried about. The kids who we should be most worried about are these kids who are in blue, because they are not working at year level comfortably, and they are not weak enough to be being picked up by the SEN team. So they're not getting any sort of extra support or intervention, and they really should be the ones that you're focusing your attention on the most. So what I wanted to ask you is to take a look at the second page of this report, the one that you've brought along with you. Is there anybody that surprised you? Is there anybody you thought, oh, wow, I didn't think that they would be that weak, that they require intervention or urgent intervention, or I didn't think that they were quite that strong. I didn't think that they would be in the top of my group. Sometimes you find that the kids do surprise you. And if you have anybody who has surprised you, you may want to go and think about going and comparing their results to other things that you're doing. If they are really out of line, that child just may have had an off day and you may want to retest them. That could be an indication that their result is an anomaly. You usually only have one or maybe two anomalies in a class of 30. So if you are going and looking at your results and you do think, oh, this child's result seems really off, just keep in mind that might be an indication you should go and retest. Has anybody noticed something different about this report when they've looked at it this time compared to when I've brought it up in the past? Does anybody notice anything different about it? Go ahead and tell me in chat if you've noticed anything different. No? Okay. Well, we have an extra color here. So where before you would have just seen your kids who are in the light green at benchmark, you now have a dark green which is above benchmark. And this has been added because I've put it in for the entire district site. Now, as part of the Teach First project, all your schools are shared by a site that Teach First owns, and so basically they have said that this is a great idea. We can go and add in this additional benchmark, and by going and adding in the additional benchmark, we can see who's actually working at or above the 50th percentile rank, rather than just at or above the 40th percentile rank. And what you might find is that this gives you a little bit more information about who is really the most secure. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about identifying some other key benchmarks. And what you may want to do is you may want to take a look at your screening report now. And if you take a look at that second page, so the one that looks like this, which would have your urgent intervention, your on watch, and your at benchmark, and your above benchmark kids, that would be really helpful because I want to take you through some of those key scores. There are two different scores that you see. The first was that normed reference standardized score where we're comparing the kids nationally. And the ones that you want to look for is, are there any who are at 115 or higher, because those are your most able kids, and are there any who are at 85% or lower because they're your weakest? And who is right there in the middle with that normed reference standardized score of 100? If you've gone and you've looked at that, there is then another score that we want to look at, and I'm actually going to jump over to this page for one moment. The other score I want to draw your attention to is something we call the scaled score. This is different from the normed reference standardized score. And can I just have you give me a tick if you see where that scaled score is on your own report and that you understand how it's different to the normed reference standardized score? because it is very, very different. The normed reference standardized score compares the kids nationally. The scaled score is just going and taking the raw score from our test. The scale goes from 0 to 1400. It's just telling us how they are performing on this test, and we use that raw figure to go and convert to all the other numbers you see here. Thank you to those people who responded. That's great. What I wanted to do is I wanted to give you an indication of when that scaled score should concern you. So we're going to just take a look at a couple of things. Now what I've done is at the top here I have reading and I have maths. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about the year that you STAR tested. So if you, for example, STAR tested year 7 for maths, you're looking for an end-of-year score of 801 for their scaled score. That means if we're looking at what they should have started with, go back to year 6 and add 1. So instead of 746, we're looking at 747. So if anybody is working below 747, you would be a little bit worried about them because you know then that perhaps that student is a little bit weaker than you expected. They're not even working at the year level yet. What is also interesting is think back to what the key stage break was. Are they working, do you have anybody who's working at a key stage below, anybody who's definitely working at key stage 2 or even at key stage 1? Is there anybody who's working at key stage 4? And you can do this with maths or you can do this with reading. And so what I wanted to do is I just wanted to give you a minute to go and take a look at that screening report. Where is there that breaking point for your year? Where is that breaking point for the key stage? Who are you really worried about and who are you not worried about at all? And just take a minute to go and note those things down on your screening report if you have that with you. If when you finish that, if you can go and just give me a tick, that would be great. There are definitely a lot of scores in our system, but actually turning them into something that's really usable, that tells you so much about your students, is fairly easy as long as you know what you're looking for. What we did with this was we got the National Foundation of Educational Research to go and look at what are the end-of-year expectations for each of the years with the new national curriculum. And then what we did was we got them to align it to our STAR test. They went and they wrote learning progressions where they basically unpacked those standards and they put them in a suggested teachable order. What we have here are those key breaking points in our scale where it goes from one year to the next. So that does align with the end of year expectations and with the national curriculum. So you know that they are going and working at least the end of the year before if they are at that score. If you're ready for me to move on to the next slide, if you could just give me a tick so I know that I can move on without going and I can take these scores off the, thank you, Ian, because I don't want to move away from these scores if people are still noting them down or if they're adding anything to their screening reports. I know we're all annotating things as we go along. Thanks so much to those three people. Jem, Lydia, maybe if you do need anything else, if you could let me know. What I can do is I can send over this slide afterward if you just go and let Jess know in chat. I don't want to take too much longer on this slide because I do want to make sure that we finish on time. Okay. I did want to show you what I was looking at. Thanks so much, Jem. With here, I wanted to just show you very quickly, if we look for 371 for this year 5 class, 371 is actually right there. And so we can see who is working below that particular year. But if we also look at who's already working at 463, it also really breaks things down because it's all my kids who are at or above benchmark. So it really goes and shows me how crucial it is to use this report if I just want to go and look very quickly and get that snapshot of where the kids are and who my attention needs to go on to next. So we've already done this. I just put the slide in the wrong order. I wanted to go and do a quick activity next. We're going to use the whiteboard, and to use the whiteboard, everybody just needs to find the arrow at the top of the screen. If you could just do that now and just click anywhere on this screen, that would be great. So go and grab your arrow. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Jem. You'll also see that right next to it, you've got that text icon. If you can click on the text icon, click next to your arrow and just type me a message, just hi or hello, anything at all, and then just click anywhere else on the board and your message will appear so I can see it. Oh, fantastic. Hey, Jem. Hello, Ian. We're nearly there. To everybody else, hi there, whoever has read. Hello, Olivia. If you do have yellow, it's sometimes a little hard to see. So Hannah, if yours is showing up in yellow, if you just want to go and grab and click on this little yellow box here. Oh, hi, Katrina. That's great. Fantastic. That is perfect. We can go and we can then go on from there. So what we're going to do is we are going to think about what already exists in your school to support those kids who are particularly weak. If you have things that are in place for your SEN students, that's great. What could you put in place for your kids who are on watch? And just go and you can click anywhere on this board and tell us what could you put in place to support those working below their year, or what already exists in your school? So I'm going to do this. When I was still teaching, I happened to teach English, so I will focus on reading for this, and I will tell you what I did. If you could tell me what you did, that would be great. So remember to click away when you finish typing so we can see what you've written. Okay, Jem said, any comprehension task is severely differentiated glossaries for all new topics. Great. Some children have a reading age a couple years below and are already going to intervention. Great. Booster lessons, English intervention at 8 a.m. That's fantastic. Great. Reading intervention for those below, fantastic. Whatever it is that you are using, all of those things are great. I always like to hear what other schools were doing because I try to often go and think like, oh, what can I steal and use in my school as well, or what would work. So it's great, so useful to go and see all the things that you are doing. And what I want to show you today is how you can go, oh, and reading buddies as well, so you're doing that as well, fantastic. I do want to show you a little bit about how you can track those to see what's having an impact and what isn't. So everything that you've done so far with STAR testing, that's what you're required to do for this project. That's it. That's all you have to do to be able to go and help Teach First out. Now, Teach First want you to get the most out of this, so if you want to use the other features involved, you are welcome to. So what I'm going to show you next is some of the things that we do have available for you. Some of this will be a little bit of a review, like you can go and you can access the diagnostic report. This is if you go to STAR, in either STAR Maths or STAR Reading, you just click on reports and it's the first report there. Each one of these will go and have a lot of suggestions for what the kids can do next. You can see here for Amira, we can see she needs to practice reading unfamiliar material, especially expository text. We can see that she needs to select a wide range of materials to improve reading skills and expand vocabulary. We can see some of the things we can do to help her through accelerated reader as well, if you do happen to have that. And for maths, we can see where they are within these different areas of math. The maths curriculum. So those are one place you could start. The other thing that this report is useful for is spotting anomalies. And does anybody know where you might see an anomaly on this report, where it indicates to you that there is an anomaly on this report? Go ahead and tell us in chat if you can see that. Or go and grab your arrow and point at it if you can see a place where there is an anomaly that's indicated. If you need a little bit of a hint, perfect. Thank you, Davey. Absolutely. So 4 minutes and 36 seconds is all it has taken for Emily to do the STAR reading test. I don't know about you. I'd be a little bit worried about that because I've tried the STAR reading test on my own before, just to go and see what it's like. And if you came to the Teach First Impact Conference, you have as well. I certainly could not get through that test in 4 minutes and 36 seconds. And I was an English teacher. I'm sure whether you're a math teacher or an English teacher, it doesn't really matter. Whether you're primary or secondary, again, doesn't really matter. As long as you know that if they're taking significantly less than 20 minutes, you probably should be a little bit worried that they're just clicking through and not taking it seriously. On the maths diagnostic report, it does look a little different. Instead, it will tell you something like, oh, it looks like this child has clicked the same answer again and again, that there was a bit of a pattern to how they chose their answers. So it will indicate, or they may have rushed the test a little. It won't give you the time it took to test, but it will give you that indication that something perhaps isn't quite right and that you may need to go and look at that a little more closely. I'd always suggest as well keeping an eye around the room. If anybody has computer troubles, that could indicate that they might have a bit of trouble with finishing the test and therefore might need to retest later. Or if you notice that perhaps they're having an off day, I always got the other person who was in the room with me, whether it was a TA or librarian or whoever it was, depending on what room we were in, to just go and make a note of anybody who seemed to be really unfocused that day, because the test is only as reliable as the kids are on that day. And if they are messing about and just clicking through and not actually paying attention, you may not get the most reliable results. And so you do want to make sure you've got your testing conditions in place, that if anybody is having an off day, you do give them the opportunity to perhaps retest at a time where they can be a little more focused. And actually, I found the biggest problem I had was often with my really able kids who would get very, very stressed out about testing. Kids who have high anxiety will often go and put a lot of pressure on themselves, and because they know the test will get harder if they're getting questions right, if it gets easier, they start to panic, and then it goes really badly. So just keep that in mind as well. It's something to think about. You might find that it can help to just remove the pressure somehow from them by going and maybe having them test in a slightly different environment where there's perhaps less pressure. So I want to talk a little bit about catering for SEN, EAL, and preschool meals. And I'm going to show you something today, and you can tell me if you're feeling brave enough to go and do this on your own afterward. And it's a little bit with our dashboards. Now, because all the reports I've really shown you today have been with the reading dashboard, I am going to show you the math dashboard, and I am going to share my web browser for a moment. So if you let me know if you can see everything. If you can't see anything, just let me know. Can you still see? Great. Okay, I'm being told by somebody in the room that you can still see. So what we're going to do is down here, you have your reading dashboard and your math dashboard. These are very similar. You're going to see pretty much the same thing no matter which one you click into. I'm going to click on the math dashboard just because I don't want to neglect all of my math teachers who are here. And I have picked on the reading stuff so far. When you come in here, if you click on Growth and Achievement, it takes you to one of these dashboards, and it will have all of your kids laid out in a table. Now, this is our demo site, so keep in mind these children are not real. And so sometimes it doesn't always look exactly the way it would if you were doing other things. I do need to go and grab perhaps the year 7s and find, oh dear. Find one of the classes that has something assigned to them. There we go. No. Yes. We have 3 kids. That's not great. Okay. I apologize. And I used this yesterday. We were absolutely fine with everything. We'll see if we have a few more kids in this class. Okay. I'll use the maths group, and we'll just have to use the 3 kids who are here. So there'll be a few things that you'll see. First of all, they should be color-coded. Just as a suggestion, if I look at the whole year, perhaps, instead of just this marking period, no, it doesn't really make a difference. So you'll see a couple of things. One, based off their scaled score, it will go and it will place them somewhere on this line. And then from there, I can go and I can click on anybody I want to know more about. So I'm going to click on Nikki here, just to see how she's doing. Or I'll click on Cecilia, because Nikki is apparently not working. There we go. That's not very helpful. All right. I'm really sorry. I'm going to come back to It's because of our demo site. I do really apologize. Our demo site just does not have as much information in it as I thought it did. I'll come into the reading dashboard and I'll take you through one of those kids instead. So if I go into exactly the same one, the growth and achievement, for this marking period, I have a ton of children who are showing up. And for any one of them, I can click on them to find out a bit more. So I'm going to pick on David here, and I'm just going to click on his name to see what it says about him. Now, he's probably one of my SEN students, and that's absolutely fine. And when I click on his name, it's going to bring up a report. Now, it's going to tell me where he is with his scaled score, and it will also tell me where he would need to be on track to be able to meet the end-of-year expectations. So we can figure out what that end-of-year expectation is for scaled score by going and referencing those figures I gave you earlier, but it does give you an indication of where they are at the moment. All of that other information from the screening report is also up here. It also goes down and breaks down the national curriculum into different domains, and it tells you what percentage of each of those domains that child has mastered at this point. And so we can see that for vocabulary, David here has gone and mastered 29%, and that for word recognition, he's mastered 33%. But what I can see is word recognition is actually an easier skill. There's a lot more green here than there is with some of the other areas. For perhaps going and engaging, responding to text, that's one of the more challenging ones. You can see there's no green there, so perhaps that's why he's a little further behind. Where this is helpful to get a quick snapshot of where the child is, my favorite part of this report is when you click on suggested skills, because suddenly this child who is in year 5, maybe, suddenly we can see that actually he's working at a year 2 level. And I can see very clearly all these skills he needs to go and work on next. And it gives me some things that I can focus on if I wanted some ideas of where to go. Now, all of this information is completely linked to the national curriculum. So you can go and you can think about how you might incorporate some of those things that perhaps your weakest kids are missing in your lessons that way. I found it really helpful to think about this when you're doing the, okay, all students will, some students might, and a few students will do this, just in terms of going and thinking about where you might be able to go and in your objectives perhaps have those things to really go and push those kids who are really able, where you can go and you can pick some of these skills to go and target those kids who are right in the middle, and then where those kids really need to be caught up, going and perhaps grabbing some of the things that perhaps they missed out earlier on. I am going to stop sharing my screen for a second because I want to come back to the chat box and just ask you what you think about that. Can you show me, use an emoticon to tell me what you're thinking about it, or go and share your ideas in chat. Okay, I see he's looking quite pleased with that. Is it something you think you'll use? Tell us in chat if it's something you think you might use. Or give us a tick if it's something you think you might use. Oh, I can see Hannah saying it sounds incredibly useful. Fantastic. I'm glad that you think that. Looks really helpful. Need to pick up some children. Speaking of children a lot and struggling to know what to focus on, great. And so those are the things that we're hoping will be useful for. What you'll see here is if they're not quite as weak as David was, there will be these double arrows next to some of the skills, which means that those are the key skills they need to do first before they can do the other things on that page. So all of those things should be really helpful. And this report is available both for reading and for maths. I'm sorry, our maths dashboard on our demo site is not as strong as our reading one. I will go and I will speak to our engineers and see if we can perhaps populate that with a little bit more data in the future. I thought that I had used that when I was practicing this earlier, but I actually used the reading one, it seems. So what I wanted to also show you is one last thing, which is about how you can use this information that you have in the system to progress monitor your students. So before I move on, can anybody, if there are any questions about this report, about the suggested skills report, can you let me know? Do you need instructions on how to get there? Because if so, Jess can throw those into chat. Do you need anything else? No? Okay. then I'm going to move right on to using the progress monitoring tools to track interventions. We have this amazing report, which I actually did not know about till I joined the company. And what it does is it goes and it helps you look at student progress over time. Now, the important thing to know about it is that it really only becomes useful once you have STAR tested the students 4 times. Now, what that means is if you do want to use this report, you may want to consider going and STAR testing your kids a little bit more frequently. So I know some schools choose to do it half-termly. Some schools will do the baseline at the beginning of the year and then once a term. For the Teach First project, you're only required to use it 3 times. You're required to use it at the start of the year, do a second test in December, and again in June. So if you want to throw one in there in perhaps April, right before the break, you might go and find that that's a great time to go and get that 4th test in so you can run this report later. And if you want to run this report earlier rather than just at the end of the year, you may want to STAR test every half term so you can do that. What it does is it goes and it takes whatever intervention you are putting in place and it draws a line saying, for Catherine here, perhaps she was given an extra hour of reading time with a TA once a week. That would be the ideal. Each one of these diamonds represents a STAR test that she's taken. So what it does is based off that first STAR test, it goes and it makes a projection. What it does is it looks at other students who are exactly the same as Catherine with their starting points. They're the same age, they're in the same year at school, they were born in the same month, and they have gotten the same scaled score. And from there, it looks at the growth trends for the top 50% of those children. And knowing that, it then says, all right, well, if most kids grow like that, she should be able to get to this point. We know that Catherine's had an extra hour a week for reading. Great. We can see that she's done 4 STAR tests. And from once she's done that 4th STAR test, it draws this black trend line. The trend line is indicating that this intervention is perhaps not as effective as it could be. And so from there, I can go and I can perhaps change that intervention and say, well, instead of that, I'm going to put her into my paired reading program. And from there, I can see that with another 4 tests, that actually she's now exceeding that expectation. Now, the way I can run these reports, there is a little bit of setting up that needs to be done at this point. So I'm actually going to come back to the site and I'm going to share my web browser with you again. Okay, and I'm just going to pop right back over here. So I'm going to come back to the home page. And the way that you do this, and I will use STAR Maths because I used STAR Reading earlier, you go into Screening, Progress Monitoring, and Intervention. Okay, if you're during a screening window like we are here, you'll see that it will tell you what percentage of your students have STAR tested. This can often be helpful because if you want to see which kids haven't STAR tested yet, if you click on Preview, you can actually view the students that are in each of those categories. And if you click Generate Screening Report, you can actually click Not Tested as one of your options, and you can find out who those 30 students are who have not tested. But if I didn't click on that, if I stayed on this page, the other tab I can click on says Screening, Progress Monitoring, and Targets. And if I just click Search, it's going to bring up all of the kids who've STAR tested. And it's going to tell me who I should be most worried about because it takes that information from the screening report and it puts it right on here. So David, who we were looking at earlier, apparently he's struggling with maths as well as reading. So if I want to set him a target, if I know we're going to put him in a maths intervention, I just click on his name and I click Add Target. From here, I can put whatever that target is, so maybe, or whatever that intervention is. So maybe he is being withdrawn once a week to work with a TA. Now, whatever you think you'll be able to get the 4th STAR test done, that's when your target end date should be. So if you think you can get 4 STAR tests done by April, you can make it then. I think that I probably will get my 4th STAR test done until the end of June, so I'm just going to say that's going to be the end date for my target. I'm going to use his first STAR test. You should only have one there. And then I'm just going to click Calculate Target. I'm not going to change any of this because the moderate target already is looking at the top 50% of students who are performing at a similar starting point as David. The ambitious target looks at the top 25%. So this is quite ambitious already. So from here, it's going to go and say how other kids tend to grow who are similar. And I'm just going to click Save. Once I do that, I can see he has a target set, and I'm going to click Done. Now, if I go and I click Search, I can do that for another child if I wanted to. So I could do that for Dawn here, or I could go and I can move on to the next page, and it doesn't look like anybody else needs that. So you may only want to do this for kids who are being given an extra intervention, but if you do have kids who are getting that extra intervention, whether it be something you're doing or whether it be something you're trialing. I know that I ran paired reading in my school, and so it was something that I quite liked to monitor because I could feed back to my line manager about how well it was going and what impact it was having on the kids. If you're doing something similar, like a maths catch-up class or your literacy catch-up, you can go and you can track them through this and just do this for the kids that it's actually relevant for. Don't try to set a target for every kid. Okay? So that is pretty much all you would need to do. And then later in the year, you can actually, if we go back to the home page, you would just click on Star Maths and Reports, and you'd be able to run that student progress monitoring report. So at this point, I do want to just pop over to remind you that when you go to renlearn.co.uk/teach-first, which I know we've sent to you a lot, you do have everything for September in here. So we've already done that first webinar, and you've got the second webinar here. We'll have the recordings. You've got the recording for the first one already up. The second one's recording, the one from today, will be up here soon. You also have a lot of other information you might find useful. Now, the next steps, which are quite important, will be happening in December. So you may want to go and watch this video tutorial at the start of December. We will send you an email just to remind you that that's going to be the case, that you're going to need to go and watch that sometime soon. It is fairly short. I believe it's 10 minutes long. And there's another video that you can watch immediately afterward, after going and start testing. We have a PowerPoint you can share with the kids. That one is the reading one. We have the maths one still to add. And then we also have our goal, which is to star test every child again. And if you need any further support at all, you can get in touch with us, and we're more than happy to help. So I just wanted to remind you that that was there. I am going to come back to my PowerPoint very quickly and just remind you of those next steps. So we have 3 key things that we're thinking about. You may want to go and look for anomalies, scroll through your STAR diagnostic reports, look to see if any kid has rushed the test or has clicked on the same thing over and over again if you're looking at the maths ones. Think about setting up those progress monitoring tools or going and looking at your STAR diagnostic reports or your student suggested next steps report, your suggested skills reports. And then you want to make sure you start test in December and visit renlearn.co.uk/teach-first prior to start testing for that video tutorial and our top tips. The next webinar isn't until February, so you won't hear from us for a while. You'll hear from us in December with some reminders, but really what you want to do with STAR is up to you, and you can choose how you want to use it. If you want to share some of the ways you think you may use it moving forward, please go ahead and put that into chat now. We'd love to hear what you're planning on doing. If there is anything else that you want to know about, do get in touch with us because we really appreciate every bit of information. And so I guess what a last question for you is how have you found the session? Go ahead and tell us with one of your emoticons. We're going to finish up in just a second, and I'm going to let you go 15 minutes early unless you have any questions. Okay, people seem to feel quite good about that. Fantastic. If you do have any other questions, do feel free to stick around. We're more than happy to help you with anything that you may want to know. Okay. All right. Well, it has been lovely speaking to you. If you do want to end the session, do you want to exit the meeting room, you can just click X at the top right-hand corner of your screen. It will close your window and exit you from the room. We will have the recording up and available soon. So thanks so much, everybody. I'll stick around in the room if you do have any questions, but I'm going to turn off my microphone now. Thank you so much for attending and have a wonderful afternoon.